Hello everyone. Today I'm going to read a story by Ruskin Bond. Mukesh Starts a Zoo. On a visit to Delhi with his parents, Mukesh spent 2 crowded hours at the zoo. He was dazzled by the many colorful birds, fascinated by the reptiles, charmed by the gibbons and chimps, and awestruck by the big cats, the lions, tigers, and leopards. There was no zoo in the small town of Dera where he lived, and the jungle was some way across the riverbed. So, as soon as he got home, he decided that he would have a zoo of his own. I'm going to start a zoo, he announced at breakfast the day after his return. But you don't have any birds or animals, said Dolly, his little sister. I'll soon find them, said Mukesh. That's what a zoo is all about, collecting animals. He was gazing at the whitewashed walls of the veranda where a gecko, a small lizard, was in pursuit of a fly. A little later, Mukesh was trying to catch the lizard, but it was more alert than it looked and always managed to keep a few inches ahead of his grasp. That's not the way to catch a lizard, said Teju, appearing on the veranda steps. Teju and his sister Koki lived next door. You catch it then, said Mukesh. Teju fetched a stick from the garden, where it had been used to prop up sweet peas. He used the stick to tip the lizard off the wall and into a shoebox. You'll be my head keeper, said Mukesh, and soon he and Teju were at work in the back garden, setting up enclosures with the roll of wire netting they had found in the poultry shed. What else can we have in the zoo? Asked Teju. We need more than a lizard. There's your grandmother's parrot, said Mukesh. That's a good idea, but we won't tell her about it. Not yet. I don't think she'd lend it to us. You see, it's a religious parrot. She's taught it lots of prayers and chants. Then people are sure to come and listen to it. They'll pay too. We must have the parrot then. What else? Well, there's my dog, said Mukesh. He's very fierce. But a dog isn't a zoo animal. Mine is. He's a wild dog. Look, he's black all over and he's got yellow eyes. There's no other dog like him. Mukesh's dog, who spent most of his time sleeping on the veranda, raised his head and obligingly revealed his yellow eyes. He's got jaundice, said Teju. They've always been yellow. All right then, we've got a lizard, a parrot, and a black dog with yellow eyes. Koki has a white rabbit. Will she lend it to us? I don't know. She thinks a lot of a rabbit. Maybe we can rent it from her. And there's Sitaram's donkey. Sitaram, the dhobi boy, usually used a donkey to deliver and collect the laundry from the houses along this particular street. Do you really want a donkey? Asked Teju doubtfully. Why not? It's a wild donkey. Haven't you heard of them? I've heard of a wild ass, but not a wild donkey. Well, they're all related to each other asses, donkeys, and mules. Why don't you paint black stripes on it and call it a zebra? No, that's cheating. It's got to be a proper zoo. No tricks. It's not a circus. On Saturday afternoon, a large placard with corrected spelling announced the opening of the zoo. It hung from the branches of the jackfruit tree. Children were allowed in free, but grown-ups had to buy tickets at 50 paise each, and Koki and Dolly were selling homemade tickets to the occasional passerby or parent who happened to look in. Mukesh and his friends had worked hard at making notices for the various enclosures, and each resident of the zoo was appropriately named. The first attraction was a large packing case filled with an assortment of house lizards. They looked rather sluggish, having been generously fed with a supply of beetles and other insects. Then came an enclosure in which Koki's white rabbit was on display. Freshly washed and brushed, it looked very cuddly and was praised by all. Staring at it with evil intent from behind wire netting was Mukesh's dog. Rare black dog with yellow eyes, read the notice. Those yellow eyes were now trying hard to hypnotize the pink eyes of Koki's nervous rabbit. The dog pawed at the ground, trying to dig its way out from under the fence to get at the rabbit. Tethered to a mango tree was Sitaram's small donkey, and tacked to the tree was a placard saying, Wild Ass from Kutch. A distant relative it may have been, but everyone recognized it as the local washerman's beast of burden. Every now and then it tried to break loose, for it was long past its feeding time. There was also a duck that did not seem to belong to anyone, and a small cow that had strayed in on its own. But the star attraction was the parrot. As it could recite three different prayers over and over again, it was soon surrounded by a group of admiring parents, all of whom wished they had a parrot who could pray, or rather do their praying for them. Oddly enough, Koki's grandmother had chosen that day for visiting the temple, so she was unaware of the fuss that was being made of her pet, or even that it had been made an honorary member of the zoo. Teju had convinced himself she wouldn't mind. While Mukesh and Teju were escorting visitors around the zoo, lecturing them on wild dogs and wild asses, Koki and Dolly were doing a brisk trade at the ticket counter. They had collected about 10 rupees and were hoping for yet more when there was a disturbance in the enclosures. The black dog with yellow eyes had finally managed to dig his way out of his cage and was now busy trying to dig his way into the rabbit's compartment. The rabbit was running round and round in panic stricken circles. Meanwhile, the donkey had finally snapped the rope that held it and, braying loudly, scattered the spectators and made for home. Koki went to the rescue of her rabbit and soon had it cradled in her arms. The dog now turned its attention to the duck. The duck flew over the packing case, while the dog landed in it, scattering lizards in all directions. In all this confusion, no one had noticed that the door of the parrot's cage had slipped open. With a squawk and a whir of wings, the bird shot out of the cage and flew off into a nearby orchard. "The parrot's gone!" shouted Dolly, and almost immediately a silence fell upon the assembled visitors and children. Even the dog stopped barking. Granny's praying parrot had escaped. How could they possibly face her? Teju wondered if she would believe him if he told her that it had flown off to heaven. "Can anyone see it?" he asked tearfully. "It's in a mango tree," said Dolly. "It won't come back."
The crowd fell away, unwilling to share any of the blame when Koki's grandmother came home and discovered what had happened.
"What are we going to do now?" asked Teju, looking to Koki for help. But Koki was too upset to suggest anything. Mukesh had an idea. "I know," he said. "We'll get another one." "How?" "Well, there's the 10 rupees we've collected. We can buy a new parrot for 10 rupees." "But won't Granny know the difference?" asked Teju. "All these hill parrots look alike," said Mukesh. So, taking the cage with them, they hurried off to the bazaar, where they soon found a bird seller who was happy to sell them a parrot. not unlike Granny's. He assured them it would talk. It looks like your grandmother's parrot, said Mukesh on the way home. But can it pray? Of course not, said Koki. But we can teach it. Koki's grandmother, who was short sighted, did not notice the substitution, but she complained bitterly that the bird had stopped repeating its prayers and was instead making rude noises and even swearing occasionally. Teju soon remedied this sad state of affairs. Every morning he stood in front of the parrot's cage and repeated Granny's prayers. Within a few weeks, the bird had learned to repeat one of them. Granny was happy again, not only because her parrot had started praying once more, but because Teju had started praying too.